Welcome back to Phenom Industry Week 2024. I'm Bill Ventiker, and today we're focusing on the manufacturing and transportation industries. These sectors face unique challenges in attracting and retaining talent while maintaining safety and productivity. The global supply chain relies on all companies working together and meeting market demands quickly. The manufacturing industry employs about 15.6 million people in the US, and the transportation sector adds another 7.6 million jobs. When you have so many people working in this industry, HR is crucial for addressing significant skill gaps, ensuring workplace safety, and adapting to fluctuating demand. Effective talent management and acquisition strategies are essential for maintaining operational efficiency and meeting production goals. We have a fantastic lineup of sessions that will provide you with innovative strategies and solutions to overcome these challenges. Join us in the chat and ask questions. And don't forget, all of the sessions today will be available on demand about an hour after today's session concludes. So, share these insights with your teams and your partners. Let's get started. Our first speaker today is Jackson Kirchis, the founder and researcher at Happiness Means Business. Jackson is an expert in workplace happiness and culture, and his organization focuses on helping companies create fulfilling employee experiences. His research and insights have helped numerous organizations improve their workforce engagement and productivity. Let's welcome Jackson as he discusses the benefits of prioritizing a culture of well-being in manufacturing and transportation.
Awesome. So excited to have you here, Jackson. You have a really unique background at the intersection of happiness and business. Wanted to dive in there and talk about how it relates to the manufacturing and transportation sectors as well. So let's talk to the audience about maybe a business case you'd make for ingraining employee happiness into their everyday approaches.
Yeah, well, that's maybe a good place to start. Is I give kind of I always talk about the business case, and the main talk I give is the serious business of happiness, which is kind of counterintuitive. So maybe I'll start there, right? Big picture, why should we care about employee happiness and well-being? And then we can sort of tie that into this market, right, of transportation and manufacturing, because I know there are some industry specific challenges and considerations. Well, just to give a little overview of the kind of positive psychological literature, what we have to understand is that this idea that we just work harder and then get to be more successful, and then once we are more successful, we are happier, is pretty deeply ingrained. But what we see is that for individuals and for organizations, this is not so much the case. In fact, there's a pretty incredible study. It's a meta study, which is like a study of studies where they look for common patterns, called The Frequent Benefits of Positive Affect. Does happiness lead to success? And what they found is essentially just that in a variety of areas, it was actually becoming happier that people were more successful. So, a couple implications here, right? So people who tend to be happier perform better when it comes to like their earnings and their financial performance. There's a study at the University of Pennsylvania actually that looked at more optimistic sales representatives, and those who scored higher with respect to optimism or positive outlook outsold their peers by about 31% over 2 years. You have other studies that do something called priming, which is where you get someone to experience either a positive or neutral or negative emotional state, and then they put them through problem solving tests. And, one study of this in children found that they set a higher goal for the amount of problems they'd solve, and then they actually did better in achieving the goal. Another study was done on physicians, right? So not just children here, but adult physicians were given a mock case to solve, and they solved it in about 50% of the time when they were in a good mood, right? So see almost twice the problem solving ability, relationship to creativity, and even just performance writ large. One of the coolest studies is done on nearly 1 million soldiers in the US Army. Found that those who were happier, so more positive outlook and more positive emotion at time one, were more likely to win awards for both bravery and for performance over their entire careers. All right, so we start with this individual case. And now, thinking about organizations, 2 other little studies that I just think are incredible that I want to share. Oxford University just put one out studying the link, looking at employee well-being based on self-reported job satisfaction. So they basically looked at Indeed, right? And they looked at 1,600 companies in the US and found that those with the highest levels of employee well-being and happiness outperform the standard benchmarks in the stock market. And there's another company that I encourage people to look into. It's called Irrational Capital, that has created a model that diagnoses well-being across several human capital metrics. And they have actually outperformed the S&P 500 and the Russell 2000 index. So again, this idea that as individuals, when you invest in tools to become happier and flourish, you're more successful. And then in organizations, there's a really strong financial performance case here for doing this. And then if we want to touch on it, of course, we can think about some obvious connections for things like recruiting and retention in this industry.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's no denying the benefits or the outcomes that can get created when you're ingraining happiness into everyday approaches. But let's expand on it a little bit and bring it closer to transportation and supply chain. How does this type of approach apply there? And what would be some of the consequences by organizations in that industry of not making improvements?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest piece, and from what I've done and, preparing for this conversation, did some research, talked to some people in the space, is just talent, right? The kind of competition and the market for talent, I know, is a challenge right now. So for instance, the American Trucking Association says that we are facing a projected 60,000 truck driver shortage. The National Association of Manufacturers says that 2.1 million manufacturing jobs could go unfilled by 2030. And in that kind of survey they put out, 77% of manufacturers said they will have ongoing difficulties in attracting and retaining workers. And so I think that there's a pretty clear connection here when you think. So there's something called Net Promoter Score, which any HR leader I think should be familiar with. It's basically asking, how likely is an employee at your company to recommend working there to someone else? And that is a huge leading indicator of how well you're going to do with both retention, right? But then also recruiting and staffing, right? Because the number one source of new recruits or new workers in most cases is your existing employees, right? And so a lot of the same factors that predict happiness, especially happiness at work, right, in the professional domain, are the same things that drive recruiting and retention. So you have relationships, right? So feeling a sense of connectedness and cohesiveness. In fact, people at Gallup, they found that those who say, I have a best friend at work, are 700%, 700, so 7 times more engaged than their counterparts. And engagement is a measure of interest and enthusiasms for one's work. So, of course, if you're interested and enthusiastic about your work, you are more likely to stay in it, right? So there's your retention and your attraction. But, things like self-determination theory. So can people have their psychological needs met through their work? Needs like autonomy, to not be micromanaged, a sense of competence, right? And then finally, work-life balance. So there are many things that we can point to here. I just read a report even the other day that was looking at things like how valued you feel by the organization, how valued you feel by the manager, really key drivers of retention, right? And so what I would posit is when you look at those drivers that influence both retention and happiness at work, if you create a climate in your organization where you retain and also attract people, right? That's what I said, Net Promoter Score. The two kind of go together. You almost can't do one without the other. You can't have a place where people are really, really happy to come to work and they enjoy the work, and also they want to quit and they don't want to tell people to work there, right? They have an interlocking relationship that I think by investing in the climate of an organization, folks in this industry can really go a long way to combat some of the challenges, particularly around staffing and talent management.
Absolutely. That makes complete sense. There's no mystery why the old adage is, your employees can be your best recruiters, right? Because when they're having that type of an experience where they work, it's going to spread outside the boundaries of the workplace. And then it's going to help with, advocacy for the type of work environment that is being created for them. And it's going to make it a more attractive place for others. So I totally understand how that could domino effect into something positive when people are not failing to acknowledge what looking at your NPS really consists of and what kind of advantage it can afford you. So let's shift gears a little bit. You're a director at work4.org. This is working 4 days a week, a newer concept, and it's shaping the future of work. It's helping people figure out a better way to approach what that time being spent by employees is being occupied with. How would the Reduced Work Initiative address challenges being experienced specifically in manufacturing and transportation? What are some of the implications of not taking that type of an approach if you were on the other side of the fence on the argument of a 5-day or more work week?
Yeah, well, I always like to start by pointing out, look, that my role at this nonprofit, so we are the leading U.S. nonprofit that does employer engagement and education around the topic. We also help advise on policy. And I say, look, it's the 4-day work week. Work4 is a great name, but it's not always that cut and dry, okay, that we all work 4 days or you all work a certain amount. Really, it's about any meaningful reduction in work time without a corresponding reduction in compensation. So what you see in most of the pilots that have been done around this topic is you have people reduce their hours by, let's say, 20 or so %, but implicit in that, there is an agreement that they will be compensated the same amount they were before, and if and only if they achieve the same amount of prior productivity, right? So it's 80% of the hours for 100% of prior compensation and 100% of prior productivity, right? Because if we were just going to say, all right, well, we're cool, everyone's going to make 20% less money and the business will be 20% less productive, obviously that's not going to work. But what we tend to find is through initiatives like this, especially because we see how AI, but just technologies more broadly have made individuals more productive, there's not really much lost when employers make this transition. And so, I sometimes say I'm not here to argue you should do it. It's more just something you should consider because, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, probably, people say the president of the United States is the leader of the free world. I think it's probably JP Morgan Chase CEO, Jamie Dimon. He says, hey, I could see employees working a 3-day week because of all of the advances in technology. Steve Cohen, a hedge fund manager, the owner of the New York Mets, actually just started investing a lot of money in leisure activities, investing in things like golf courses, because same thing, he sees the future of work. This movement really seems to be picking up speed. So it needs to be something folks are thinking about. Now, getting into some of the implications here in the data, right? So there have been several pilots done across pretty much every different continent, hundreds of companies, thousands of employees, and there's some sort of highlight reel findings that we can talk about with this. So we tend to see generally equal or slightly improved productivity throughout the trial. We see equal or slightly improved revenue. And so in one of the last pilots, when you looked at the year to date, kind of during the pilot revenue versus that same period in the prior year, there was a 38% increase in revenue. Now, this is important to point out. I don't think it's fair to say that the reduced work time caused a 38% increase in revenue, right? Because you're probably thinking, well, it had to do with the prior growth rates and the fact that this was like 2 years ago, the economic conditions were quite favorable. Things were growing really rapidly coming out of COVID. So all that's true, right? But the bottom line is it's not hindering revenue growth. You saw a consistent boost to recruiting and retention, right? Which I'll tie back to thinking about the theme that is relevant for this tight labor market. Attrition, so people leaving work voluntarily, was down about 57% in one pilot. And we saw a 12% increase in employees throughout that pilot. So companies were continuing to grow and hire new people. And then least surprisingly, probably, if you're thinking about a 4-day week or reduced work time, somewhat obvious, massive benefits to employee experience across the board, 71% lower burnout, 43% improvement in mental health, right? So pausing there, we can already start to see how this can be a differentiating factor, particularly in an industry like transportation and manufacturing, where it can be difficult to attract and retain talent and kind of compete for talent and shake things up and look for innovative new ways to get things done and do the work and to be productive. Well, we see this initiative as an opportunity here to really invest in employee experience and compete on things other than just total compensation, right? Because I know plenty of people who would take and myself included, if I were still in corporate, would take a massive pay cut to work in this sort of environment, work fewer hours, prioritize work-life balance. So there have been a couple companies as well in this industry who have done this. One that comes to mind is Advanced RV. For the sake of time, I won't give too much detail on those case studies, but they are a small manufacturer in Ohio that outfits these custom RVs. They successfully implemented this program, and the CEO who I talked to said it was really about just delegating, setting standards for velocity, quality, productivity, and empowering staff and teams to meet those goals. And then on the larger company side, I'm excited to see how this comes out. If you look in the news, it should be coming up in, I imagine, a few months. Unilever in New Zealand piloted a 4-day week, and it was so successful that they have expanded it to Australia. And so they're now trialing that process. So, overall, when we think about especially Gen Z and some of these newer generations, a lot of what they value is employee experience. I want to have a work to live rather than live to work. And so this whole idea of reduced work time is a very innovative and very novel approach that may be a useful tool to attract and retain talent, shake things up, and seek productivity in new ways without necessarily losing out on productivity or revenue.
Yeah, and it sounds like piloting it might be the best approach. I heard when you were going through some examples, that sounds like organizations that haven't totally gotten on board with it, in critical mass are starting smaller, figuring out a way to get it rolled out and test and evaluate. And then like the Unilever example, maybe expand and make it more of an impactful exercise. So it's definitely something we will stay dialed in on as more of those play out. And exciting to hear, some of the data that you had to share about it. Let's shift gears into workplace safety. That's something that's also pretty top of mind when we're talking to professionals and practitioners in manufacturing, transportation. Building a culture of safety and trust, it's an important way to retain happy employees. Can you tell us how you've helped organizations in this industry contend with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I was really excited to speak on. Probably one of our more successful case studies in our consulting and organizational transformation practice was with one of the largest agricultural goods transporters in the country. And they came to us really struggling with operations as a whole, but particularly their safety program. And so when we think about safety and maybe even operations execution more broadly, I think that there's an overlooked element. Okay. And that's what I might call the climate, the kind of psychological factors of an organization. So I'll give you here like a 3-minute version, hopefully, on change management, right? How to inspire and manage change. So we teach the 4S model. That's something we use in our frameworks. That means you need skills, you need systems, you need shared commitment, and you need psychological safety. Okay. So, and I know that psychology doesn't start with an S, right? But the safety, okay, psychology is in parentheses. But when you think about two of those are very processes and strategy driven, right? Skills and systems. And so we did some things with this company around their safety program, their strategy and whatnot. But what we realized, it was really about the psychological dimension, the climate of the organization, which has to do with shared commitment so that we all feel bought in to the why behind safety. And it has to do with psychological safety. And psychological safety, right? Not to be confused with like safe space, PC. It really just means that you feel an environment is safe for interpersonal risk taking. You feel trust, you feel cohesion. And above all, you feel like you can speak up without the fear of like looking stupid. Okay. If you're in the type of organization where people say, that's just not how we do things around here, or you have an idea or you want to ask a question, but you're like, people are going to think I look stupid, then that's a problem. And that means you're lacking psychological safety. So here's how this kind of looks. So we can come in there, and a couple of the things we did right around psychological safety is, just communication style and emotional intelligence. You think about two examples. You come in and you're not wearing your safety glasses, and I say, hey man, what are you doing over there? Put your glasses on. How many times do I have to tell you? Idiot. You do that again, your ass is out of here, right? They'll probably put the glasses on, but that's not a very effective way to influence. But if you think about a more emotionally intelligent approach that maintains psychological safety, so it maintains trust and connectedness, you say, hey buddy, I know I know I've mentioned the glasses before, but at the end of the day, I want you to go home safe to your wife, Sarah, and your son, Jesse. And I want you to have both your eyes when you do get back to them. So can you do me a favor? Keep the glasses on. As a manager, it's really important that we role model that right now for our drivers when they come in to help shift the culture. Right? So example number 2, you're probably going to get a lot more compliance, right? And so that's one piece. Then you have the shared commitment piece. We had all new drivers sign off a letter that stated their commitment to safety because they wanted to get home every single day to the people who mattered most to them. And we sent those letters out to their families so that they would actually get home and have a discussion with their family about their commitment to safety. And then when we very first started the engagement, credit to my business partner for this, he came in with a police badge and a pair of handcuffs, and he arrested, quote unquote, the COO of the company for manslaughter and reckless endangerment and said, look, you guys might go to jail and the company's going to be insolvent if you don't turn around the program. So what are we doing there? From the top down, you arrest the COO, that's going to generate some commitment. That's going to get some buy-in, right? And then you have from the bottom up with the front line, that commitment to safety. And by really leveraging the psychological pieces of this, we helped turn around their program to the tune of, last I checked, was an 80% reduction in cost of claims, saved them $3 million and had one of their best years ever for profitability. So when you think about safety and really operations effectiveness as a whole, think about that 4S model and don't overlook the psychological pieces of psychological safety and shared commitment to create a climate of really genuine care and compliance.
Yeah, I think anyone listening in today is going to put their goggles on after hearing those examples and take a closer look at what figuring out a way they can, maybe take a closer look at psychological safety and how they're leveraging it in manufacturing and transportation. I know we don't have a ton of time left, but what would be the 3 key takeaways that you'd leave our guests with today, if you had to sum it up?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll hit on one of each. Okay, so starting with the one I just shared in the trucking company, it would be, don't overlook the psychological dimension of inspiring and managing change. Okay. And the key psychological factors being, of course, people need to have the skills and people need to have the systems in place, the accountability, the processes, the technology. But if you don't have the buy-in of the people expected to make the change, you don't have a climate of psychological safety where open communication and trust and collaboration can happen, it's probably going to fall flat. Okay. Second takeaway would be, don't mistake time for productivity. Okay, they are not the same thing. In fact, in many instances, especially involving knowledge workers, it's possible to achieve more while working the same or working less if you apply different ways of thinking. Because that relates to the reduced work times piece. And then the final takeaway, probably the most important, would be, like I said, right? My signature talk is the serious business of happiness. It's not just about happiness at work. Oh, this is nice. But understanding that happiness, so positive outlook and positive emotion amongst your employees, not only is a key success factor for recruiting and retention, but all these other things we talked about, job performance, sales performance, creativity, problem solving. It's really the foundation for high performance. And so it should not be overlooked.
Excellent. I feel happier just listening to everything you had to share today. And I'm sure everyone else on the other side is smiling as well. Can't thank you enough for the time today and all of your commitment to making the workplace a better place. So thanks again for being part of Industry Day for manufacturing and transportation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson, for sharing your knowledge and perspective on workforce well-being. Next, we have Meredith Wellard from DHL Group, who will share how they successfully handle talent logistics across the globe. Meredith is the Vice President of Talent Management, Learning, and Growth at DHL, a global leader in logistics and supply chain management, operating in over 220 countries and territories. They're known for their innovative approaches to talent management and their commitment to sustainability and efficiency in all of their operations. Let's hear from Meredith about how DHL consistently ensures that they have the right people in all the right places. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Meredith, and thank you to all of you HR leaders here today for tuning in to our Phenom Manufacturing and Transportation Day. DHL is continuously providing innovation and looking for ways to solve problems and find a better, faster, more cost-effective way to do it. And manufacturing and transportation companies need to scale their workforce up and down to meet all of your fluctuating demands, from products being designed, built, packaged, and shipped all over the world. Meredith, I'm so happy you're here from DHL Group to share your story about the challenges you and your team have tackled to find the right candidates and skills for all the diverse jobs across your global teams around the world. And I can't wait to hear how you've leveraged technology and how you've automated to be more efficient and to provide better visibility to your employees and on where talent is needed most and how they can grow their career, whether it's in the air or on the sea or on the roads. We know your teams are very, very dedicated to getting things where they need to be quickly, and provide that complete end-to-end supply chain and really connect buyers and sellers everywhere that helps make e-commerce thrive and grow. I'd love to jump right in with you and get some of that story that you tell so well. In the logistics industry or in the manufacturing and transportation industry, maintaining a cohesive employer brand around the world while you're recruiting for 180,000 employees and in 220 countries, I know that's a big challenge. Can you discuss a little bit about some of the issues that DHL faces in a day, in a month, in a week, and the need for your industry to really engage with candidates, both for frontline and for those specialized roles?
Definitely. I think, and just to sort of give a little context to that size and scale. So we indeed in every country in the world, but 600,000 employees, that their manifests at an annual recruitment of around 150 to 180,000 team members, many of whom are frontline. So we're really talking those people that are out in the field delivering shipments, delivering post, loading airplanes, working in warehouses and so forth. And I think particularly in today's world where the nature of work is shifting in ways which we've never seen before. One, because of the demographic shifts across the globe, because of globalization, because of the movement of people from one location to another. And I think that it becomes more and more difficult to identify, select and retain the right people to make a business like DHL successful. And on top of that, of course, the fact that logistics as an industry, and I know many industries are going through transformation, particularly due to some of the technical advancements that are taking place. But logistics in particular has been impacted by some of the tech changes, particularly around the use of robots, automation, simplification, and so forth. So finding team members who are not only willing and able to work with us, but are also willing and able to work side by side with robots, who can adjust and adapt and are somewhat resilient in the changing nature of work. So there's a lot going on. You mentioned our employer brand, and I'll just touch on that because that,
Sure.
I think, is the piece that's really put us in a strong position today. That we started a journey several years ago now to articulate who we are as a company to the outside world, like what it means to come and work for us, but position it in as a brand position in the market, leveraging also our very strong consumer brand, and then ask yourself the question, how on earth do you get that out to the world? Like, how do you find, the brand is good, we love it, but now how do you actually get it out to people with a very strong career site? So picking up on some of the great tech that's available from a career site perspective, great relationships and understanding how to use job boards, get that transparency on Google, leverage the Zeo impacts and so forth. Yeah, we've been on a journey. It's been something.
Well, I know it's a big challenge, especially in manufacturing and transportation. You have a whole new generation of workers that you need to introduce to your business and your way of working and show them that this is a fantastic culture and a career that can grow with them. Tell me a little bit about how your talent acquisition strategy and your employer branding focus aligns with the overall business objectives.
Yeah. So we're coming off the back of our what we call our 2025 strategy, which has a strong focus on digitalization. And as part of that, of course, we need to be able to identify and bring on board those tech specialists that we need to take us into the future. Unfortunately, logistics is not, when any young smart person goes to a great university or polytechnic or whatever they do, I believe that DHL, specifically logistics, actually is not the thing that they walk out going, yeah, I'm going to take my IT skills, I'm going to take my blockchain skills or my cloud security skills or whatever, and I'm going to go and work for the best IT company in the world, DHL. No, I think they think of other places first, but we want them to think of us first because we
Absolutely.
believe that if we position it right in the market, what it means to be, in this case, a tech talent coming to work at our company. So really personalizing the messages, targeting it to the right people and the right places, keeping the pipelines warm with interesting facts about who we are as an organization when you're an IT or tech professional or a young talent or a freight forwarding specialist. Whatever the target audience is, we have to not go generic but go target specific. And I think that's the fun in the game, is really bringing it to the person that you're looking for, not leaving it to chance. No spray and pray going on. We're really targeting it.
Well, I love that, and I know DHL very well. I think that it's evident really quickly when someone lands on your career site and starts to learn about your company that innovation and technology is at the heart of DHL's business, and communicating that and making it clear that it's your mission to make sure every member of your team has the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life by leveraging that technology and your innovative solutions is really powerful. So let's talk about that a little bit. Your team implemented some amazing innovative strategies. You consolidated career sites that you had all around the world, and you really focused on an employer brand, and you're using AI and automation for scheduling interviews. How did those strategies that you've put in place help speed up the recruitment process and help improve the way that you engage with candidates and enhance that candidate experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a big, long story, but I think starting with the consolidation of the career sites, like being able to architect a solution that can address the needs of 220 countries, and then that doesn't even include the fact that there are then local regions, areas, states, and locations that want something different. Plus, we have 5 different divisions. So that complexity was something that we spend a lot of time working on identifying what is the best sort of, from an architecture perspective, the best setup that's going to get us what our target is to increase the traffic coming directly into our career site in order to reduce the cost and the lumpiness of always relying on job boards and
Yeah.
other things, right? So just talking about multiple clicks as being something that annoys people as soon as they have to go through a job board, through if they come to us first in any country in the world in the language that they want to speak in. So we have over 30 languages on the platform. Then the experience the candidate has is far superior. If then they receive this beautiful, relevant brand campaign that sits with what they are interested in, you're a frontline interested person. Let's give you, for the sake of coming off the top of my head, some trucks and vans and customers. If you're a tech interested person, let's give you robots and also our young talents who are potentially looking for something to travel around the globe, and so then we bring to them our global reach. But my point is, it's about bringing the right thing to the right person at the right time. And what we've discovered is the more that we continue to enhance the relevance of our content, continually updating it, continually targeting it at the right person, the more visibility we're getting in Google search. So our search engine optimization is really optimized. We have search engine optimization, and many times we are at the top just below the sponsored ads. So I think having a tool that can enable us to do that lets us do it real time, not having to go to someone and ask them to do it for us. This has resulted in greater visibility, many more, more than double the number of interested people coming to our career site, and therefore increasing the number of clicks, the number of applies that we get. From a percentage perspective, it's gone up tenfold, so it's significantly improved. And I think just to sort of wrap that up, it's about having the right tech, having the right strategy, and really working hard to focus on achieving the performance that you're looking for. And if that is to be the first one on the Google search, then make sure you're tracking it and maintaining it and, doing clever things to get there. So,
Well, it's a very competitive industry. I love hearing that the focus on employer branding and that experience in telling your stories having impacts on how you're ranking in the way that people are finding jobs, right?
yeah.
I think the audience would be really interested to hear, like, what are do you know some of the specific metrics about how some of this innovation has improved your success of your HR efforts? Like, how much have you decreased the time it takes to hire a new team member? Um,
Yeah.
what has been the increase in those quality applicants that you can move forward for additional screening and interviewing, stuff like that?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't have the numbers right at my fingertips,
Mhm.
but what I can say is that we've seen a significant increase in, as I mentioned before, the amount of traffic coming into the pipeline. So, and that's really doubled, right? So we're really seeing millions now more than what we used to see. We see an increase in the number of applies, and we see an increase in the number of team members who are being, if they're not successful in the first, they're sitting as a lead on the CRM and then being moved into a better fit. So we're trying to move away from a mindset of rejection into a mindset of next best opportunity. We also are continually seeing a reduction in the time to fill as we get smarter and smarter about how these apply flows work, how we can remove unnecessary steps. We integrate a feedback loop into the candidate journey, and then based on the candidate feedback, we're able to make adjustments and adaptations. And as we introduce things such as the automated scheduling, the manager dashboards, what we find is that, you know, the previous steps where people were spending days backwards and forwards trying to find the right interview slots now are being done, you know, super quick and without pain and frustration, with a lot of visibility. You know, no manager wants to hold up their recruiting. They just ended up doing it because they also had to run an operation or, you know, run the day-to-day of wherever they work. And I think sometimes the big global numbers are not really the truth tellers, right? The truth
Sure.
tellers come in those places where you see a turnaround in recruiting activities because you now have a better geolocator that can now really target marketing campaigns to the audience that is hard to find. Or introducing a functionality like, you know, the sort of events or the campaigning functionalities to, again, you know, or using the AI to keep it running, no person involved except at the beginning and maybe at the end, and to track some of the metrics. But I mean, this stuff's game changing. That's what I would say. It's very, very cool.
I love that you shared that, because I think we talked a lot about the candidate experience and how you attract the right people, but all of these have such a huge impact on your recruiting teams. And if you
Yeah.
can remove roadblocks and help them immediately cut to the people that should be the highest priority to have them join your team, it makes a night and day difference with the recruiting people around the world.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic to hear. So
I
let's
mean,
shift gears. Oh, go ahead.
just on that one, because I
Yeah.
think that one of the things that I really, and I've said this a couple of times before in different interviews, but I really feel like we're bringing joy back into recruiting. I really feel like we're finally giving recruiters tools beyond administrative tools that they can use to search, find, evaluate, keep warm candidates without huge administrative burden that they had just a couple of years ago. So it's a good thing.
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left with our audience here today, so maybe we'll do a couple of rapid fire takeaways here.
Okay.
Um, I think that it's really important not only that you're thinking about the talent attraction side, but the talent management and internal mobility aspect of HR in a company like yours is so important. Can you talk a little bit about how technology is helping you manage that
Yeah.
internal talent and how you're fostering that employee culture and careers with your existing
Yeah.
employees?
So if you take 600,000 employees, one of the things we've never previously been able to do is have visibility on where our talent really is. So we've always had quite a high internal placement rate, sitting around 60 to 70%. We have decided to move forward with a very strong focus on building from within to avoid some of the fluctuations that are happening in the external markets, but also because it's the right thing to do for our people. And now we can do it. Now that there is, again, some of this technology available, that, you know, if we can bring people into a space where they declare their skills and express their interest, raise their hand and say, I want a career with this company, we get to see them. We get to put them into our pipelines and talent pools, develop them intentionally, and build those career paths up. And I think that was never possible. I've been in talent management for over 25 years, with Excel spreadsheets being the last huge breakthrough, right? So, and now we have something really meaningful to work with, and we can do it for 600,000 people. So that's pretty special.
That really is special. So, as a final closing thought here, I think the audience would love to hear your insight about what are the next things your industry has to tackle and what you think the next big future roadblock and challenge is going to be. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how AI and automation is helping with that. But really just want to hear what your view of the future is. And then maybe in 3 bullets, share with this audience the really important takeaways for a talent attraction or talent management professional, what they should be thinking about when they leave today.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to the logistics industry specifically, it really is a place where the nature of work is changing due to technology and advancements. On top of that, the weird sort of shifts in the global demographic and economic space is something I guess all logistics firms, companies are keeping an eye on. Because the third piece, I think, is that, when it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to, these small to medium enterprises that are now having access to a market that is well beyond the borders that they, sort of probably traditionally operated in, there's a lot changing in logistics, and we need to ensure that we have the systems, processes, and people ready to respond to those needs quickly. And we're a behemoth of a company, right? We don't we deliver quickly, but we don't move quickly. So I think for us, it's one, ensuring that the talent acquisition is fast, efficient, and targeted and adaptable. So I know that's 4, but really getting it right. But I also think that it's about knowing who you need and knowing where you're going to find them, and challenging some of the traditional or legacy mindsets that you might have about where the next talent will come from, and whether they're going to be available in the format that you previously recruited them.
Right.
So yeah, but I think it's an exciting time to be in this space, and it's great to see the progress.
Well, thank you so much, Meredith, for sharing your experience and your thoughts around what's really key in this industry today. We really look forward to continuing this conversation in other ways. And I hope with some of the great questions in the chat that we can connect you with more people across your industry. I think it's so important for all of you to share best practices and connect with each other. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this conference. Thank you again. Thank you for everybody for attending. And we'll see you in our next session.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you so much, Meredith, for those practical insights. Now, we'll hear from our Phenom experts, who will present on employer branding, how to reposition manufacturing for the new generation of workers. We'll talk about talent management for understanding and integrating declining and emerging skills, and we'll talk about Phenom onboarding solutions. Let's dive right in.
The newer generations, their interests and priorities have drastically shifted over the last few decades. In the world of manufacturing, talent required for some of our most critical roles now simply has more choices in the places they can go and the work that they can do. This shift in our space has had an undeniable impact for organizations like ourselves, who are now needing to recruit and hire for this new generation of talent. Similar to what you heard from our friends at DHL just a short while ago, organizations now need to find more creative ways to get in front of this new generation of talent faster than the competition, present what matters most to this talent to get them interested, stay engaged with this talent over the coming weeks and months to nurture them, and ensure that when they're ready to find and apply for a role within our organization, it is faster and easier than ever before. In the same capacity, as an employer within this space, the roles that we hire for and the skills required for these roles have also drastically shifted over the last several years due to technology advancements. So we need tools that are going to help us to articulate the continued evolution of work that we do here in this space, all while ensuring that we're delivering this content to candidates in a way that is most meaningful to them. So how do we meet this new generation of talent where they choose to work? It doesn't matter if they are a material handler, a forklift operator, or a quality control engineer. Today's generations live their primary day-to-day directly from their mobile phones. Ensuring search engine optimization of your career site and easy access to each and every one of your job opportunities means that for the over 90% of candidates touching Google at some point during their job search process, more than likely from their mobile phones, they're able to quickly and immediately engage with your brand. Once on your career site, this is your opportunity as an organization to highlight your organizational EVP. But it's also your opportunity to deliver content that is going to be meaningful to each and every job seeker based on what they care about most. Through Phenom's content management system, your teams will have access to a drag and drop interface to spin up new content, adjust existing content in an unlimited capacity to ensure that you're reaching each and every unique job visitor to your site with content specifically relevant to them. Such that if I'm a rising junior looking to complete my schooling, when I come to your organizational site and want to learn about your internship programs or your upcoming university recruitment events, you want to explore longer term education, what sort of tuition reimbursement programs you offer. That content can now be front and center for that audience who's coming to your organization and exploring information relevant to them. On the flip side, if I'm a candidate coming to you looking to explore your frontline opportunities, maybe what's important to me is understanding your benefits programs or your hiring process and how long it will actually take for me to move through the hiring process before being onboarded into your organization. Now, this personalization of content needs to go beyond just them learning about your organization. It also needs to extend through to the process of them finding opportunities as well. Now remember, this new generation is likely coming to your site from a mobile phone. So while this entire experience is in fact mobile optimized, for a candidate coming to you from a mobile phone, they're going to be immediately engaged with this 24/7 recruiter or the chatbot. Now, this chatbot can engage candidates to answer any questions they have on your organization, but can also be used to engage them to really highlight your organizational EVP and articulate why you should be their employer of choice. That video content can be front and center, immediately engaging absolutely every job seeker coming to your career site so that they understand why you as an organization are the right fit for them. Now, this 24/7 recruiter doesn't care what day of the week I'm coming to you, doesn't care what time of day. So for those candidates coming off their shift at 4 a.m., that chatbot's going to be ready and available to assist, whether it's answering questions or navigating them in their career. Now, certainly if I choose to actually start to explore some opportunities, I can answer a couple of quick questions specifying the types of roles that I'm interested in. And at this point, additional video content can be leveraged to really help me explore what a day in the life of a warehouse associate might look like in your organization. This becomes important because my perception of work as a candidate in the newer generation doesn't necessarily have an accurate depiction of what the reality of that role actually looks like. So being able to visualize what a day in the life from your actual employee who sits in this role today will really help me understand if this role aligns with my preferences. And if so, I can specify where I'd like to perform this job, and I can then receive hyper-personalized recommendations straight in this chatbot experience. If interested, I can leave behind my contact information, which will include a name, an email, or phone number, such that even if I get pulled away from this experience at this point in time, I can be re-engaged automatically from your recruitment team via email or text message to pull me back into the experience. But if in fact I continue to the prompts, I can answer a couple of quick screening questions specific to this role, which can also include shift availability. And should I respond favorably based upon your organizational requirements, I can now be fast-tracked through the process to then schedule in that first round interview with your hiring team. So this process historically could have taken days, if not weeks, and we're now able to help your candidates move through this quick and easy process of finding a relevant job, being qualified for that job, and scheduling in for an interview in 3 minutes or less. But what happens to those candidates who choose to exit out of the chatbot experience, or maybe they've left behind their contact information, they get a phone call and they leave the experience? We want to ensure that for those candidates, they have other ways to engage beyond the chatbot experience as well. So for those candidates who are deciding to close out the chatbot, they will have additional ways to engage, whether they want to answer a couple of quick questions, or maybe in some cases, they have a resume that they can drop into the experience. Now, certainly any organizational privacy agreements can be embedded throughout the experience here. But as a candidate, I can then validate now my contact information, the types of roles that I'm interested in, all of which is being parsed out from my resume that I've just attached. As a final step, I can optionally connect my social profile, but I certainly don't have to. At which point I'm now receiving that hyper-personalized view of recommendations on screen. These recommendations are being recommended to me based upon my profile in place that specifically align to my skill sets, my experiences. So I no longer, as a candidate, have to find that needle in a haystack that aligns to my skills, right? We're doing the heavy lifting for your candidates now on behalf of them, and we're funneling them into the roles of relevance, making it really quick and really easy for them to then action on those roles. Now, if I want to take a deeper look on this material handle role before deciding whether or not I'm ready to apply, I can dive into the role. I can, of course, see the job description, but from here, I also have additional ways to engage. Whether I want to start exploring other recommendations being made to me, or I can also from here start to view that same video content that helps me to explore what a day in the life might look like as a material handler at DHL. Now, if in fact I'm interested in this role, but I'm not yet ready to apply, maybe I want to save it to my job cart, and maybe I leave the site entirely. As I return to the site a day later, a week later, a month later, because of that continued engagement from your organization, the continued emails that I receive every other day, and the text message that I continue to receive, pulling me back into the experience, inevitably when I come back, I'm not having to start from scratch. I'm able to pick right back up where I left off during my previous visits, and I'm now able to see those jobs being recommended to me front and center now as a return visitor. This is truly allowing me to take quick action on the roles of relevance so that I can go ahead and apply. So as you heard, it's more about than just serving up the right content at the right time to this new generation of talent. Ensuring that we take the guesswork out of it for them at every step of their journey, personalize their experience with relevant content and job recommendations, and ensure that of all the information they're providing to us, we're using that information to then make smart recommendations on roles that they'd be a good fit for. All in all, making for a great experience for a candidate and ensuring that we're getting more qualified talent in the door for your recruitment team.
The manufacturing industry as a whole has been undergoing a technology-driven transformation over the last 10 to 20 years. This transformation is now happening at lightning speed as technology continues to evolve to meet the needs of the overall industry. Technology is creating higher levels of output and efficiency across the board, but also creating more complexity for talent teams. On top of that, segments of the supply chain, they're all interconnected. From manufacturing to warehouse and distribution to transportation and all the way to the last mile. Each segment is interdependent upon each other to have scalable efficiency. With the advent of smart manufacturing and smart warehouses, the use of cobots and automation is front and center in the industry. We are seeing this in distribution centers where humans used to pack boxes and now machines do all that manual output. Utilizing machines has been able to double the output while cutting the error rate in half in a lot of cases. The same approach is impacting manufacturing, where machines are creating much more efficiency in building products, and in logistics, where real-time tracking is also available at scale now. In all of these examples, efficiency at scale still requires the human to be in the loop. But this transformation has created a much more specialized approach to the jobs that exist in the space and requires specific skills for the jobs of today. The increasing adoption of automation and advanced technologies in manufacturing is changing the skill requirements for most of these roles. Companies may struggle to find workers with the necessary technical skills to operate and maintain automated systems, leading to a shortage of qualified candidates. Attracting, retaining, and developing talent within the space is critical. Among the major private industries, workers in manufacturing have one of the highest tenure rates at 5.2 years. The challenge many organizations are facing is that legacy roles that were critical even just a few years ago need to evolve with this transformation. But companies haven't figured out that evolution. In fact, 79% of employees cite that no advancement or upskill opportunities is a key factor for leaving the organization. The big question is, how can talent management approach this new reality, knowing we need to understand how legacy skills connect and translate to each other, as well as the new emerging skills that are existing in the marketplace, through building a skills understanding across the organization and at scale. We also need to understand, how do skills translate to the job level, connecting skills to your company's jobs architecture? And how do you map out what career growth and development looks like across the organization and deliver it back to the applicable personas in the company? Employees who need guidance as to where their unique skills translate across the enterprise, to people leaders who need to understand the intentions of their team members and provide learning and development plans, and to talent management, who needs to be able to understand the organization as a whole, as well as its unique segments, and be able to provide context as things change. Historically, the process to create this skill architecture is a very manual effort. Talent management meets with every department, identifies key functional roles, then they need to map skills and competencies to these key roles, and then layer on all the different proficiency levels to the roles. They can then publish the career architecture for leaders in the organization and then have to repeat for each department. This is extremely manual, extremely time consuming, and can take months, if not years, to complete. This is a never-ending process, as the architecture needs to be dynamic and can become obsolete rapidly. As we address these challenges, data is front and center. Over the past 13 years, Phenom's data engine has been powered by billions of data points, from jobs to skills to people details to industry and location variances, to name a few. This data engine was built to understand the connections and patterns between these massive data sets. The output is industry-specific skills ontologies that are not just a moment of time, but rather are fluid and change over time based on industry changes. These industry-centric ontologies can then layer on additional context from your organization, such as your job descriptions, employee data, employee movement data, and so on and so forth, across the organization to create an ontology for you. This understanding can then be delivered back to the talent management team so that the human is in the loop as your organization evolves. Our manufacturing industry ontology has mapped to over 2,700 roles that exist within the industry. This ontology connects jobs to skills while also looking at both skill and job adjacency, and layers on the uniqueness of your specific industry to ensure that context is brought in. For example, a project manager in healthcare versus a product manager in manufacturing has a wildly different set of roles, responsibilities, and skills. Throughout the ontology dashboard, we're able to drill down into the role level and identify these connection points. Taking a look at a quality control auditor position, AI-generated job descriptions take into account the typical job functions and responsibilities that are consistent across the industry, along with the typical job families and potential tracks. This is the overall ontology view, so as the context of your enterprise is added with data integrations and curation, we can identify those attributes that are unique to your organization. Taking it a step further, the output of the analysis is a skills map on the role level, looking at business skills, hard skills, soft skills, as well as industry specialized skills. On average, every role has 20 to 22 skills that make up the uniqueness of that role. Layering your company's unique unstructured data through job descriptions, employee profiles, employee movement, performance management, competencies definitions, along with dynamically understanding industry changes, provides a skills ontology purpose-built for your organization. Your talent management team can then provide added context, such as new skills that emerge and weighting importance or proficiency. For strategic or specialized roles, you can start understanding what positions may look like feeder roles across the organization, or even identifying succession plans across your organization. These skills are analyzed at scale to understand how they translate across your job's architecture as well. This provides insight into both recommended skills based on progressions, along with historical movement to provide guidance to employees. The inverse understanding is also available, looking at where unique skills exist across the organization. Skills can be looked at on both the role and employee level so that your team has a broad understanding of where skills exist across the organization and where you can help develop effective strategies in addressing the necessary skills of the future. Throughout the experience, talent management will be able to understand skills on the organizational level, as well as filtering down to the unique areas of the organization. This insight drives the experience of the other personas that are part of the journey, providing employees with the insight into how their unique skills translate across the organization from a career growth standpoint, and providing people leaders with the tools to understand the skills on their team, as well as their employees' aspirations, and providing the organization insight into where growth needs to occur to develop learning and skill development plans. This isn't something that can be done manually, and companies in the manufacturing and other industries that aren't looking at this technology won't be able to keep pace with the innovation. Fortunately, as you've seen, the right tools exist, you just need to start using them. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the presentation on onboarding and the importance of employee experience in automation, especially in the manufacturing and transportation logistics verticals, right? I think the big concern, having spoken to a lot of industry executives, the big concern or the big goal from a onboarding perspective in the industry is to really focus on time to productivity. We don't want 43% of your new hires waiting for more than a week to get their tools, resources, uniforms. That is a waste of time. That's a loss of revenue. That is just not business okay. And so the idea for a good onboarding process should always result in the shortest time to productivity. And during that time, to get productive, you also need to make sure that training and development opportunities are available for each individual, personalized for each individual so that they know what they are supposed to do at their job. They know how to be the best performer, how to contribute to the organization, and that they're satisfied with their training and development opportunities. Really crucial, because what usually happens is the first 3 months in their job is a really crucial time span. One, it's when they're going to decide if they want to stay with the organization or not. So you want to try and reduce those drop offs. And two, in the industry, as we move to Industry 4.0, as we move into more automation, it is a really important time period to focus on safety and security of individuals and build that training and organizational discipline within the individual, because we have seen, and there research that talks about the fact that it is 3x more likely that employees suffer a lost time injury in their first month, which is a really, really critical aspect to keep in mind from an onboarding perspective. Someone has to get productive, but safety and security have to be prime focus. Now, the onboarding process, when we kind of peel the onion a little bit, you'll start seeing that there are multiple apps, multiple systems, multiple processes within the organization, which make this a really big challenge. How do you ensure a personalized experience? How do you ensure automation? How do you ensure standardization across the group, across the organization, across countries, across regions, across teams? And this is what we will address in our product and in the demo, and give you a guide on how to build this. Because every CHRO, every CIO, every leader that we talk to, their focus is on standardization and consolidation. One platform to run the process, one platform to standardize the process across the globe, but delivering a personalized and automated experience. Now, that's a lot. And that is where we can help you. Because we want your organization to move from one that is a cookie cutter, one size fits all experience, where there's no personalization. Everyone's trying to figure things out. Everyone's running all over the place to get things for themselves. What if we could move and transition you over to an organization that can deliver a personalized onboarding experience, and personalized not just for one person, but for every single individual, because it is scalable and it is infinitely scalable across the globe. So standardized, personalized, and automated, where we can give your new hires a personalized training and learning experience. We can look at all the assets, access that's required, ensure that they get to know who they're going to be working with, ensure that their safety and security are prime objectives from a training perspective. Compliance is met, so you're not leaving anyone behind, but at the same time, you're taking the entire aspect of onboarding into account. And that's where the power of Phenom really comes in, is that it gives you one single platform, one single data record, all the way from data that's captured in the career site over to the application stage, giving you the best fit scores and giving you the best recommendations. That data is then also used to generate the offer once you confirm that the individual should be brought in. That data is used in the offer generation, and we don't stop there now. You can actually use that same data, that same record, keep getting built, and is being used for onboarding, for compliance, for training, so that you have a record of how people perform their training through the onboarding process, and then keep looking at their career growth over the next few quarters, over the next few years, and look at how you could use that data to really develop the talent in your organization and ensure that they stay with you and they see the opportunities of career growth from an organization perspective as well. This is really important, because we are now giving you the ability to have a single data set across the experience, across the hire to retire, and being able to kind of create that experience using the data that we capture, we store, we then use to deliver that experience for each individual. And so if you were to sort of double click on the onboarding side of things first. If you look at onboarding, I just want you to spend a quick minute to just take a look at all the various aspects that go into onboarding. It's not just an HR problem. Onboarding is not an HR problem. Onboarding is an organizational effort. And you can see that over here. You need verification vendors, you need compliance teams, you need managers to play a really crucial role. You need IT to come in and support the asset allocation, identity creation, payroll management. You need all of them to kind of come together to build the perfect onboarding experience. And that's what we can actually do for you from a Phenom perspective. And that's the advantage, is to look at this holistically rather than just looking at one little silo of onboarding. It's not just about engagement. It's not just about good content. It's not just about good training. It is about all of these various aspects coming together. It's to ensure that the uniform is available on time for your frontline staff. It is about ensuring that they are ready to rock and roll on day one with training, and so that they're not wasting time from a productivity perspective. You need to have their payroll set up so they don't think about all of those issues. They're not focusing on the administrative issues because they know that's done. So that is the power of onboarding and personalizing and automating the entire onboarding experience. As you think about this, I'm going to actually demo and show you a few quick views on what you could see from a product and platform perspective. And the first thing I want to take you through is what we kind of call the unified profile. The unified profile very closely resembles and reflects that last slide that you just saw. All these various systems, teams, processes, all of them having to come together. In today's world, I'm sure that means going to 5, 6, 7 different systems, pulling up Excel sheets, doing pivot tables, consolidating all of that, creating a report, and then presenting it to management. But with the platform, with our onboarding product today, what you will be able to do is get one view to see everything about an individual. Gusty over here, everything about Gusty, everything from a compliance perspective, asset allocation perspective, could be ServiceNow, then there would be document insufficiencies from a verification vendor. You would have different vendors in each region, and that's fine. We'll consolidate all of that. You will still see one standardized process, one standardized system for all of those variances in each region. That's fine, but you will still get one view instead of having to go to 7, 8 different systems to bring all of that together. And that's really crucial. That's really important. And that's the foundation. Data is and continues to be the foundation of a great experience, because we are now able to consolidate everything that we've captured through the acquisition process. And then we're able to take that data, consolidate it even more through the onboarding process from a training perspective. What are the training journeys that they have gone on? What are the verifications? What are the data types that need to be captured? How quickly did they complete verification? How quickly did they complete training? Were their assets allocated on time? Did they get their uniform on time? All of that is now being captured so that it gives you an overview of a onboarding process that's going right, or gives you a quick early warning signal to tell you where things may need a little bit more focus. And so from a workflow perspective, we have built templates to automate, and this is completely configurable to your company because every single company has nuances which are very, very different. We understand that. And we've built it in such a way so that it can be completely configurable for you. So you could see this is actually the workflow or the process flow of how a candidate goes from offer acceptance to completing all the processes and then gets ready to onboard and gets ready to be productive. And ideally, we want that person to be productive in the shortest time possible. So we have instances where companies have traditionally taken about 8 to 10 days to complete all of these administrative and compliance processes, and we have brought that down to less than 1 day. That is a massive upheaval of the process and a huge return that the company could now, very publicly talk about. it is a great ROI. You don't have wasted time, wasted resources, revenue going a begging, because you now have a process which is completely configured and runs the entire gamut of offer acceptance to getting them productive, training them, and getting each individual ready to contribute to the organization. And so it's also very important to think about that whole piece of communication, about training, about learning. We have a very comprehensive content management system and a journey management system. More importantly than the content management, it is the journey management, because you can actually create very custom, very focused journeys. Why journeys are so powerful for all of our customers is because you could create journeys for specific personas within the organization. You could actually create specific journeys for someone who's joining the organization in the New York region and has less than 2 years of experience. So you need to focus a lot more on the safety and training aspects, and probably has never done the sort of role that you're thinking about. That is a persona that you could create if you so desire, right? And you can actually create a complete journey for those personas. You could have a different persona, which is someone who's coming in with 5 years, 10 years of experience, who's done this before in a different company, but you just want to talk about the nuances, the difference between your company and where she may have been before, right? So the idea is we will help you create these journeys, and you can create unlimited number of journeys. The ease with which this happens is so simple. You can create different types of content, different type of milestones, different type of tasks. Pulse questions, really important. On day 8, send out a simple pulse question. Hey, how was your first week? And what this shows is there's an escalation configured, which means that if someone rates it 3 stars and below on a 5-star rating scale, HR can get an immediate escalation saying, hey, this person just gave it a 1-star rating and their week was not very great. Maybe you want to reach out. You don't have to wait till day 30, day 60, day 90. That's going to be too late. That's going to be just too late to get the person back in. You can address, empathize, and understand and solve for the problem right then and there. And that is a huge advantage with our journey management system, because it makes it very easy for you to create specific milestones and touch points and trainings and how you set up goals and all of that for individuals, and personalize it so that the feedback loop, and usually that's where we always want to improve, that feedback loop becomes quick and becomes effective within the organization. The other part from a platform perspective is also all the vendors, because we know that onboarding means that there will be different vendors in different places, and it could be verification vendors, it could be uniform vendors, it could be payroll vendors, it could be different types of vendors coming in. We have the ability for you to create a vendor management system, build that within the organization, create multiple vendor types. And why CIOs love us is you can now start orchestrating the type of data that goes to each vendor. So it's no longer about pulling out Excel sheets, doing multiple pivot tables, consolidating 5 Excel sheets into one, and then sending it over to a vendor, and then realizing, oh no, I actually sent this guy's favorite hobby to the vendor who's going to be creating our uniforms. No need for that. You can now choose the type of data that's going to each vendor and make sure that the data security and sanctity is also upheld. CIOs love us. So this is a quick overview of the platform, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm sure you want to know more. We have a ton of reports. We know enterprises love Excel sheets, so we still do have the ability for you to download a lot of this data as Excel sheets and CSVs and do your own pivot tables if you so desire, though there's a lot of it out of the box. But if you are looking at consolidating and unifying and standardizing your onboarding experience while thinking about personalizing and automating it, that is a lot. But we can help, and we can show you exactly how it's done and how we've done it for a lot of the other companies in the past. With that, I would like to thank you for being a part of this session and look forward to more engaging conversations going forward.
That concludes our Manufacturing and Transportation Day of Phenom Industry Week. We hope you've gained valuable insights into enhancing talent attraction, engagement, and retention in the manufacturing and transportation sectors. Our team showed you all about how to reposition manufacturing with a new generation of workers with Phenom's career site and video hub. And then we showed you how talent management can understand declining skills and emerging skills across your company, and how to address that with Phenom Workforce Intelligence. Finally, we introduced you to Phenom Onboarding to get new hires up to speed quickly and effectively. If you want a deeper dive on any of the products mentioned today, schedule a conversation with our team at phenom.com, and they can personally walk you through any of your questions. Thank you to all of our speakers and to everyone who joined us today. All of these sessions from today will be available on demand in about an hour or so you can revisit them and share them with your teams. Tomorrow's our final day, focusing on the financial services industry, where we'll explore how to navigate the evolving talent landscape in a competitive space. See you at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow.